was to the east. That's all I needed to hear. So, Channel 6 had this big board. He had audio visuals. Rain, snow, sleet, all that stuff. And Pat Gray would do the news, you know, with the weather at 5:30 at night. And then she'd leave it up there. So I'd come up in the morning and I'd just go... Fannie, saw the weather this morning. There were floods, rain, and storms in the Midwest, and your weather was over there in California. So I got fired off the weather too. Anyhow, so from the experience, really, that I had at this wonderful theater, and the experience that I had doing live television that sprang forth from this theater. And as I always tell my good friends, I say, listen, I survived live TV and James Hatcher, nothing scares me. I made some notes because I was so nervous about coming. Actually, I've been ready since yesterday. And so you can imagine how happy I am to be here and how much it means to me to be here. And I can't thank you enough for coming to this theater tonight. And it's really going to help us a lot. And then one of my notes to myself, and it says, shut up and don't bore people to death. Okay.
Fannie, we talked about several items that you might share with the audience tonight. One that I know several folks have asked is, why did you choose to write about Birmingham in this new book?
You know, I wrote Fried Green Tomatoes, and half of it was set in Birmingham. Birmingham means so much to me. This is a book I have wanted to write all my life, and you know, it took me this long to do it, and it was the right time to do it. I have always been very heartbroken about the misconception people have had about our city and our state, and I have had to deal with that because I remember when I first went to New York, and I would tell people, this was in the mid-60s, I would tell people where I was from, and the reaction was very negative, and it broke my heart. And I kept trying to tell people how wonderful the people here were, that it was not a balanced representation of who we are and what we are and how beautiful this city is. And I couldn't convince people. And so I always wanted to write a book that would show for other people around the country and the world what Birmingham was really like. And because I love Birmingham, you know, I was one of those people that I only left because I had to go someplace else to make a living. And, you know, I left physically, but in my heart I never left Birmingham. So Birmingham has always been my muse. Almost everything I write really is about Birmingham. And if you read this book, you will recognize so many places and people. And I'm so glad that we are finally getting the press that we need, and we're coming back, because I remember in the early 70s when we were very afraid that the city was not going to survive, and all the businesses were going to Atlanta, and we were so worried about that. Do you remember that, Jay? And it was so wonderful that Birmingham has come back, and it's just so beautiful, and I'm just so proud of it, and I want to share that with everybody. And I remember when I first was in New York or whatever, and I would tell people where I was from, and I always made it a point to tell people where I was from. Whether I was on television, I always said where I was from, because I was always proud of where I was from. And some people back then, would say ugly things, and then it would hurt me, and I try to convince them, and you can't convince people. And then, now that the world has changed and everything, people now, I'll still meet some people, and I'm sure some of you have too. I'll say where I'm from, and they'll say, oh, I wouldn't live there if they paid me. And I said, oh, well, yes, and I appreciate that.
Tonight is just one example, and most everybody in this audience knows of many. Why do you continue to support theater arts in Birmingham?
That's a wonderful question, because it changed my life, and I know how important the arts are to children, particularly children that might not fit in anywhere else, because I found a home here. And if you can get a young person involved in theater, you can change their lives, and that's why I think it's so important. I know that we need scientists and mathematicians and all of that, but there is still a desperate need for the arts, the humanities, and of course my heart is always in this theater, and that's why I support this theater.
Sort of what we expected. Ted Conroy said in his review of your new book, and he was in town last week and has told me this several times. He said that I Still Dream About You is a love letter to Birmingham. Do you feel that's an accurate assessment?
That's what I tried to do. And I think it is. That's exactly what I was writing. People that have read the book, and I've talked to reviewers in London and in Scotland that are just fascinated, because they never knew that Birmingham, number one, was hilly, and we had this beautiful English and architecture, and they're just fascinated with it. And so I wanted people to know the city and love it as much as I did. And so Birmingham is a character. I would have to say Birmingham is the main character in my book. And that's what I was trying to do. So if he says I did, he's very smart.
He was very complimentary and talked about you the whole time he was in Birmingham.
Well, he's wonderful.
If you would, we have a few questions from the audience. If you would
Love to.
be so kind.
Of course.
What is your favorite memory from match game?
Here is my question. Who wrote that? My favorite memory. This is a running joke. Here I'm trying to be serious often, and there I am sitting on the network with fried eggs on my tongue. I enjoy. My favorite memory was basically, I would have to say, every day that we would film 5 match games in one day, which a lot of people didn't know. We go in on a Saturday and we film 3 shows. And what would happen is between shows we'd go upstairs, change tops, and come back down. It was another day, but it really wasn't. And they change audiences. So we did three shows, and then they take a big dinner break. Well, the dinner break was about 2 hours, and Brett Summers and Charles Nelson Riley and Richard Dawson would hit those martinis. my favorite memory was literally the every day was just great fun, and everybody got along on that show. It's terrific. So I have to say my favorite memory is just every day. And let me defend myself. The reason I wore those silly shirts was, you know, I started where I wore one or two, and people sent me shirts. And that's why I wore them, because people would send them and they wanted to see them on television. That's why.
It's so controversial. Will the film Red Bird Christmas be filmed in Alabama?